At 70, Jerry Hall finally revealed what Rupert Murdoch did that made divorce inevitable. For 4 years, Jerry Hall said almost nothing. No tell-all book, no talk show tears, not one sit-down interview about the man who ended their marriage while she was lying sick in bed. Then in June of 2026, weeks before her 70th birthday, she spoke to British Vogue and finally used the word she had never said in public. Traumatic. And here's what we need to understand about this story. It is not that Rupert Murdoch left her. People leave. It's how he did it. 33 words. That's the entire length of the message that ended this marriage, and the 33 words were only the beginning. Stay with us, because what happened in the days after that message is the part almost nobody talks about. To understand what those 33 words destroyed, we have to go back to where this began, and it began, fittingly, in print. January 2016. Readers of the Times of London opened the paper to the births, marriages, and deaths section, the small classified notices, wedding anniversaries, funeral announcements. And there, sitting among them, a few lines of type naming all 10 of their combined children, his 6, her 4, and ending with the words, "Delighted to announce their engagement." The Times, of course, belonged to Rupert Murdoch. The most powerful media owner on the planet had announced his 4th engagement in his own newspaper, in the quietest corner of it, like a country squire. Remember that detail. It's coming back at the worst possible moment. They had met only months earlier, in Australia, introduced by Murdoch's sister and his niece. He was 84, divorced a couple of years earlier from his 3rd wife, Wendy Dang, and reportedly lonely. She was 59, a Texas-born supermodel who had spent 22 years and raised 4 children with Mick Jagger, a relationship that ended when Jagger fathered a child with another woman, and a marriage ceremony in Bali that a court later ruled had never been legally valid at all. So when Jerry Hall met Rupert Murdoch, she was a woman who had already given 2 decades to a famous man and walked away with no legal standing to show for it. By her own account, what drew her to Murdoch was the opposite of rock and roll: stability. Devotion. A man who called when he said he would. Within months, they were photographed together at the Rugby World Cup. By the Golden Globes that January, there was a ring. The whirlwind took less than half a year, and the people around them understood the logic of it immediately. He was the widower of 3 marriages, a man whose empire spanned continents, but whose evenings had gone quiet. She was famous for exactly the thing his life lacked: warmth, and a Texas drawl that treated billionaires and doormen exactly the same. On paper, it was the least likely pairing of the decade. In person, by every account from those early months, it worked. March 2016, they signed the register at a private civil ceremony at Spencer House in London, and the next day, they walk out onto the steps of St. Bride's Church, just off Fleet Street, for the celebration. The journalist's church, standing in the spiritual home of the British newspaper industry, Rupert Murdoch, 84, married to Jerry Hall, 59, surrounded by his adult children and hers. The photographs from those church steps show a man grinning like he'd gotten away with something wonderful. He declared himself the luckiest and happiest man in the world and announced there would be no more tweets, maybe ever. For a while, it looked true. They split their time between London, a country estate in Oxfordshire, vineyards, ranches. Friends described her as attentive to him, protective of his health, the person who softened him in public, and that description was tested early. In January of 2018, Murdoch was badly hurt in a fall aboard a yacht in the Caribbean, a back injury serious enough that by several later accounts, those close to him feared for his life. He was in his late 80s. And through the long recovery that followed, it was reportedly Jerry at his side, managing his care and keeping the world at a distance while he healed. File that away, because it makes what comes next almost impossible to process. This was not a trophy marriage where 2 famous people waved at cameras and lived separate lives. By the accounts of people who saw it up close, she showed up for the hard part. 6.5 years of red carpets, family holidays, and 1 genuine medical crisis she walked him through. She had, it seemed, finally found the safe harbor. Now hold that image of the church steps, because we're about to watch it burn down in a single afternoon. June 2022. Jerry Hall is at her home in London, and she is unwell by her account, laid up with food poisoning. Sick in bed, she reaches for her phone, and there, sitting in her inbox, is an email from her husband. She opens it. Quote, "Jerry, sadly I've decided to call an end to our marriage. We have certainly had some good times, but I have much to do. My New York lawyer will be contacting yours immediately." End quote. That's it. That is the whole message, as later published in a report by Vanity Fair. No phone call, no conversation. A 91-year-old man, ending a 6.5-year marriage, the way an executive kills a business unit. And the sentence that cuts deepest is the shortest one, buried in the middle. I have much to do. She reportedly had no warning it was coming. She was his wife nursing a stomach bug, and by the end of that email, she was a line item handed to the New York lawyers. The marriage was announced in his newspaper. It ended in his inbox. He never stopped being a publisher. He just changed formats. And think about the timing from her side of the screen. 4 years earlier, she had been sitting beside a hospital bed, helping a man in his 80s fight his way back from a broken spine. Now she was the one lying sick, and the same man could not manage a phone call. But if you think the email was the cruelest part of this story, hold on, because what happened next is why we're really here. According to that same Vanity Fair report on the Murdoch family, when the time came for Hall to collect her belongings from their Bel Air estate in California, she told friends that security guards stood and watched as her own children helped her pack. And it went further. She reportedly had to show receipts, actual receipts, to prove that items she was taking belonged to her. Sit with that scene for a moment. A woman in her mid-60s, boxes at her feet, her kids carrying furniture past hired men with earpieces, digging through paperwork to prove she owned her own things. This wasn't the end of a love story. This was an asset audit. And here is a detail that often gets lost. It was Jerry Hall who formally filed. In the first days of July 2022, weeks after the email landed, she walked the paperwork into a Los Angeles court, citing irreconcilable differences, because whatever he had decided in his inbox, the legal ending would happen on the record, in her name. By her account, she was heartbroken and devastated, words she used to friends, not cameras, because very soon, the cameras would be off the table entirely. August 2022. The divorce is finalized, and the public statement delivered through their attorneys is a small masterpiece of corporate language. The two remain, quote, good friends. Keep that phrase in your pocket. Good friends, because buried in the settlement was a condition that tells you exactly what Rupert Murdoch was actually worried about. It has been widely reported that Hall was barred from providing story ideas to the writers of Succession, the HBO drama about a ruthless aging media patriarch and his warring children, a show partly inspired by the Murdoch dynasty itself. Think about what that clause admits. A $23 billion man looked at his departing wife and concluded the most dangerous thing she owned wasn't jewelry or property. It was information, what she had seen at the dinner table. So the settlement finished what the email started, and it purchased the one thing money usually can't reach, her voice. For 4 years, that purchase held. So the years passed the way settlements are designed to make them pass, quietly. Murdoch's name stayed in the headlines for entirely other reasons. Hall's appeared under Fashion Week photographs. Two people who had stood together on the steps of the journalist church now moved through the same world without touching once. And to everyone watching from the outside, that looked like closure. It wasn't. It was a contract doing its job. The difference only became visible in June of 2026, when British Vogue came asking about her whole life. And that is exactly why what she said matters so much. The payoff came in 3 pieces, and each one is quieter and colder than the last. Piece 1, the word. Speaking to British Vogue on the edge of turning 70, Jerry Hall described the divorce for the first time in her own public voice as traumatic. One word, 4 years late, and it detonated the good friends statement on impact. Good friends do not describe each other as trauma. Piece 2, the freeze. Asked whether she ever sees Murdoch, she made clear she hasn't seen him in years. Multiple outlets reported she has not seen him at all since the divorce. No dinners, no calls, nothing. The man she married beside the journalist church has been, in effect, deleted. And piece 3, the sentence that says everything while sounding like nothing. Explaining why she stays warm with Mick Jagger but not with Murdoch, she said, quote, not all exes you want to be friends with, do you? Some people aren't friendly, but I think when you have children with someone, it's important to be friendly. End quote. And then of Murdoch, her exact words. Rupert, we were married 6.5 years and no children. Look at what she just did there. Jagger broke her heart in 1999, but he built 4 children with her. He shows up as a grandfather, so the friendship survives. Murdoch gave her 33 words and a security detail, and left her nothing that needed protecting. She didn't rage at him in Vogue. She did something a media man would find far worse. She filed him under not worth the friendship and moved on to the next question. And the setting made it land even harder. She wasn't phoning a tabloid in anger. She was sitting at the top of a victory lap profile in British Vogue, the kind of interview devoted to legacy, family, 5 decades of photographs, pausing, almost in passing, to confirm that the fourth marriage was the one wound that never closed. The rest of the conversation was Warhol stories and grandchildren. Murdoch got one word and a shrug. So what exactly did Rupert Murdoch do that made this divorce inevitable? Everything in this story points to one answer, and it isn't the email itself. It's what the email revealed. For 6.5 years, Jerry Hall believed she was in a marriage. The email, the guards, the receipts, the silence clause, each one showed her in escalating order that on his side of the table, she had been something closer to a holding. Acquired in 2016, divested in 2022. Non-disclosure attached, the divorce became inevitable the moment she stopped fitting his plans. And the truly chilling part is how she found out from her phone, with food poisoning. On an ordinary afternoon, and the two roads out of that summer could not have split more sharply. Rupert Murdoch did exactly what the email promised. He got on with the much he had to do. Within a year, he was engaged again to Anne Leslie Smith, a former police chaplain, an engagement that collapsed after roughly 2 weeks. The much he had to do, it turned out, included starting over twice. In the autumn of 2023, he stepped down as chairman of Fox and News Corp, handing the empire to his son Lachlan, and before long, his own children were facing off in a Nevada courtroom over the family trust. And in June of 2024, at 93, he married for a 5th time, Elena Zhukova, at his California vineyard, which means the settlement clause aged into a punchline. He paid to keep his 4th wife from feeding storylines to Succession, and then his real family spent the following years living one, in open court, for free. Jerry Hall took the other road. No 5th act with another mogul. She walks Paris Fashion Week beside her daughter Georgia May, and turns heads at Berlin Fashion Week with her daughter Elizabeth, 2 women who look so much like her that photographers keep double-taking. She's a grandmother several times over. And this spring, she sat for a long, laughing podcast interview about Andy Warhol, Lucian Freud, and the life she built long before either of the famous men who broke her heart. At 70, the woman who was made to show receipts in her own driveway is the one who looks like she kept everything that mattered. Because here is the thesis of this whole story, and it fits in one line. Rupert Murdoch spent 33 words ending the marriage, and Jerry Hall spent 4 years of silence, then ended him in one. Traumatic. He controlled the announcement, the email, the settlement, the clause. She controlled the only thing left, the verdict. And the verdict of the woman who knew him at his own dinner table is that he does not make the list of exes worth knowing. So now we want to hear from you. Jerry Hall waited 4 years and settled it with a single word instead of a tell-all. And honestly, we think that word landed harder than any book could have. If you agree, tell us in the comments where you're watching from tonight, and tell us this: could you stay silent for 4 years? If you made it this far, you're exactly who this channel is for. Subscribe, because next we're looking at the billionaire wife who saw the signs years before the world did, and what she quietly did about it. It's on your screen now. The marriage began in his newspaper, in the smallest print he owned. Just remember, she got the last word anyway.